What do we say to the god of death? Not today in Memphis, Tennessee. The Memphis Grizzlies have advanced from the 2025 play-in tournament. They have defeated the Dallas Mavericks. The reward, a series with the best team potentially in the entire NBA, the Oklahoma City Thunder. We will talk about all that and more on this special weekend edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Joe Mullinax. No DeMichael Cole, the commercial appeal, here with me on this show. He is finishing up his coverage of the NBA play-in tournament and getting ready for Grizzlies Thunder on Sunday afternoon. DeMichael will be back with us for our Monday edition of the show. Make sure you are liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Google, literally anywhere you get podcasts. Make Locked On Grizzlies part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time an episode drops. And also make sure you are checking out LockedOnDaily.com. Every weekday, you will get a newsletter from me and others around the Locked On NBA sphere, talking NBA basketball, fantasy basketball, and of course, the Memphis Grizzlies. Those words from me on the Grizzlies. So make sure you're subscribing over at LockedOnDaily.com if you have not already done so. What a big win for the Memphis Grizzlies against the Dallas Mavericks. And the trend continues, right? The Grizzlies play well against teams that are below 500, and they struggle against teams that are above 500. It's one of the reasons that I was confident picking them going into the Dallas Mavericks game, because Dallas is a team that is under 500 for the year, or was 39-43 heading into the play-in. And Memphis, of course, has had their struggles. That's why they don't have their head coach that they started the season with. But they have played well against teams that are below 500. And that's exactly what happened for the Grizzlies, especially in the first quarter against the Dallas Mavericks. We'll start there, talking about how impressive that first quarter was for the Grizzlies. And it had to start with the toughness of Ja Morant. Now, if you go and you look at Ja Morant's stats, they're not going to jump out at you. The fact that he scored 22 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, that's impressive. I'm not trying to say that's not good. His efficiency, 7 of 24 from the field, not what you would want, not what he would want. But still, the fact that he was out there on the floor competing, getting to the free throw line, 7 for 7 from the charity stripe was Ja Morant. The idea that he was willing to risk it all, go through the medical treatments that he did to be able to play. And when I say risk it all, I'm not sure if further injury could have happened. If he was endangering himself, I don't think Ja Morant plays. It was a pain tolerance thing. It was a, can you make the cuts and the movements that you need to make? He clearly was not 100%, but he was closer to 100% than I thought he would be. He was maybe 85-ish percent instead of the 70% that we saw there in the Golden State game. Now, it's a quick turnaround going into OKC, and we'll talk more about that. But Morant should be good to go going into the Thunder series. Ja wasn't alone in this game, though. Jaren Jackson Jr. is back. And if you watch the game, if you saw it, dear listener, dear viewer, guess who clearly is an everydayer to Locked On Grizzlies? Guess who is pretty obviously a subscriber over at LockedOnDaily.com to our Locked On Grizzlies newsletter, one Jaren Jackson Jr. Because not only did Jaren Jackson Jr. have 24 points on 18 shots, Jaren Jackson Jr. had 7 rebounds, and Jaren Jackson Jr. had 4. 1, 2, 3, count them, 4 assists. A couple of them coming out of double teams. The playmaking Jaren was there. It was one of his best games that he has played in so long. 24 points, as I said, an efficient 24 points. An efficient 22 points from Desmond Bane. 22 points on 15 shots. Way too many turnovers for Dez. 6 turnovers, one of his worst games recently in that regard. And some of those looks led to easy opportunities for Dallas offensively. So not a perfect game for Dez. If I had to rank them, I would say Jaren probably played the best, and then Ja, and then Dez. But if you wanted to put Ja in front of Jaren, I'd be okay with that. But all 3 of them did well, and all 3 of them contributed to the Grizzlies winning this game. The Grizzlies stars were able to take this from the Dallas Mavericks, whereas the best player on the floor for either team was Anthony Davis. 40 points on 29 shots for AD, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. He was banged up throughout the game. You could tell by the end he could barely get up and down the floor. Still able to put up 40 on the Grizzlies. The AD beating up on Memphis trends continue. Thankfully, the Grizzlies don't have to worry about that again for several months. He didn't have much help. The second best player on the floor for the Mavericks was either Brandon Williams or Klay Thompson. And in the year of our Lord 2025, for that to be true is a massive problem for the Dallas Mavericks. You have players like PJ Washington, who were a big deal in that Mavericks NBA Finals run. There was another guy that was on that Dallas team, of course, last year. I forget his name off the top of my head. It maybe rhymes with Suka Mancic or something like that. But that guy's not there anymore. PJ Washington looking very pedestrian. No points in 27 minutes played. That is a disaster. Derek Lively, no points in 20 minutes played. And if you tuned into yesterday's show, the crossover with Locked On Mavs, Nick Angstad talked about how the size of the Dallas front court, how interesting that matchup would be. And it was interesting for the Grizzlies because outside of Anthony Davis, who definitely got his, not trying to pretend like he didn't, the Grizzlies front court won. Zach Edey won. Zach Edey was 7 of 9 from the field. We talked about efficient offense from the game on Tuesday against the Warriors, how that was a major problem. Maybe Zach Edey's a big fan of the podcast and newsletter too. 15 points on 9 shots, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 32 minutes played. Zach Edey played one of his best games of the season when the Grizzlies needed it most. Scottie Pippen Jr., no turnovers, 2 assists, 5 for 10 from the field, 3 for 5 from beyond the arc. Scottie Pippen Jr. played one of his best games when the team needed it most. And it was an 8-man rotation for the Grizzlies against the Mavericks. Tuomas Isalo. I see what you're doing there, Tuomas. I see you, Isalo. Marvin Bagley was 16 minutes because of the size of the Mavericks front court. That is exactly the reason why I am excited that the Grizzlies made the playoffs. You can make an argument for keeping the pick and all that sort of stuff and the long-term health of the organization. Sure, there's an argument to be had there. Do the Grizzlies have a chance against the Thunder? A fool's chance, a puncher's chance. OKC in 4 or 5 is going to be almost the universal pick. And that's understandable. You're not going to get any arguments from me. The Thunder are one of the best teams, not just this season, but in NBA history, statistically, by a lot of measures. And the Grizzlies are the number 8 seed in the Western Conference. But the Grizzlies are not your typical 8 seed. The Grizzlies were the 2 seed just 2 months ago. And of course, they're banged up, don't have Brandon Clark, don't have Jalen Wells. But to try to cover that, Isalo has shrunk the rotation. Santi Aldama played starter minutes. He played 29 minutes as well. He should moving forward. But John Conchar got 24 minutes in this game. And as much as I like to hate on John Conchar, and if you're an everydayer of Locked On Grizzlies, you know it is one of my favorite pastimes, hating on John Conchar. He was plus 18 in the game. He had the best plus minus of any Grizzlies player. 5 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, no turnovers, had a steal. Give White Rice his due. He looked pretty good against the Mavericks. Bagley hasn't been deployed often, but 6 points, 5 rebounds. He did some good things in the game. Isalo has shown between the Warriors game and the Mavericks game that he is willing to game plan. He is willing to adjust. There are guys that are going to be locked into what they do. The 5 starters are probably going to be the starters moving forward. I think it's a safe bet that Santi Aldama is going to continue to see starter level minutes off the bench. But against the Mavs, it was Conchar and Bagley. Against the Thunder, maybe it's Kennard and Bagley. Maybe it's Kennard and Conchar. Maybe it's a variety of different guys that could be in that mix. So Isalo being able to be not a creature of habit, but a willingness to add spice to the variety of life. The movement against 2 different teams to deploy 2 different game plans and succeed to varying degrees. It was successful against the Warriors. The Warriors just had Steph Curry and the Grizzlies didn't have enough firepower late. It was successful against the Mavericks, and the Mavericks played the role of the Grizzlies from Tuesday night. The Mavericks didn't have enough firepower to hang late. So the Grizzlies pick up a big win. The big 3 lock in and get things done for Memphis. It was a beautiful thing to see. Very excited, as you should be as well, that the Grizzlies have a playoff run ahead of them. That means Locked On Grizzlies stays in season mode for at least another week or so. Very exciting times. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, it will be on to OKC. We will talk about exactly that, how all that will play out, at least starting with Sunday. And we'll take a look at the start of that series and all those fun things. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by the good folks over at Upwork. I am a big fan of Upwork, and you should be as well. If you're not, what in the world are you doing? Upwork makes life easier for folks that are trying to just run a business, right? With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Instead of hiring full-time, you can also utilize cost-effective growth and find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale any business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. This special episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Monarch Money. I am locked in with Monarch Money. So is my wife. It's because I check my bank account sometimes and I wonder where all my money went. Going out to eat too much, online shopping. It's easy to lose track. Monarch Money comes in as a personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one spot so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. It allows for you to save money, and it allows for you and your partner to be part of the journey together in terms of your finances. Take control of those finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Go check them out. So the Grizzlies move on from the Mavericks and they head to the Oklahoma City Thunder, literally, right? The Grizzlies are going to get on a flight here soon and take on OKC on Sunday afternoon. Not the most fair situation for the Grizzlies, but in fairness, when you're the 8th seed and you had to win a game just to get into the playoffs, it's hard to be too negative with regard to that situation. So there's a lot to kind of break down with this series. And the first thing to talk about is the schedule, because as we alluded to, Memphis on that quick turnaround, they play at 1:00 Eastern time on Sunday against the Thunder there in Oklahoma City. Then their next game is Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern against OKC, and that'll be on TNT. So the Sunday game is on ABC, and then the Tuesday game is on TNT. So no NBA TVs just yet for the Grizzlies against the Thunder. The next game is Thursday. The next game is Saturday. So oftentimes when you have these series, you see early breaks, big gaps between game 1 and game 2, between game 2 and game 3. That is not the case in Grizzlies Thunder. You will be through game 4 of OKC versus Memphis by Saturday of next week. So literally a week from now, we could be talking about the Grizzlies season ending, right? A little bit more than a week, because they'll play on Saturday afternoon against the Thunder in Memphis. So you've got a Thursday night game, and then you've got a Saturday afternoon game in Memphis coming up this week. The fascinating thing for Memphis going into this series is how are they going to manage the injury to Ja Morant? Because obviously there's an injury. We're not going to pretend like Ja is 100% because he's not. And it's a very quick turnaround on this game. They literally just finished this game not too long ago. They're going to board a plane this, early afternoon, you'd imagine, fly into OKC. Maybe they do a shoot around. Maybe they don't because it's such an early start. I'd imagine they won't. So no practice, no shoot around. They just travel in and they have game 1 after, less than 48 hours, having knocked off the Mavericks to earn the right to play the game in the first place. And then they play on Tuesday and then they play on Thursday. There's no back-to-backs, obviously, in the postseason. But how they manage Ja, that's going to be something to keep an eye on. That doubled up days off doesn't come until game 5 or game 6, if it's necessary. And most people, if not all people that are going to be breaking down the series are going to say that it is definitely not necessary. A game 6, maybe somebody gives Memphis one win in the next 4 or 5 games, and that'll be it. Spoiler alert, that's probably going to be me. But what Memphis has to do is first and foremost, keep Ja Morant as active and healthy as they can. Because without Ja, the Grizzlies aren't going to be able to get much of anything done. They need him as a threat. They need him as a creator of offense. They need his explosiveness. OKC is so good at limiting teams that thrive in transition. And guess who is a team that thrives in transition? The Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are 100% one of those squads. So Memphis has to have somebody like Ja that can create in the front court, create in the half court, and really get looks for opponents. That matters immensely. Another thing that matters immensely going into this game on Sunday is the Grizzlies finding their footing in terms of being able to depend on Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane to get their own looks, get their own shots. They're going to have to do what they did against the Mavericks and then some if they're going to keep it close with OKC. The strength of Memphis is they have multiple star caliber players. Ja is the one superstar. But Jaren's an all NBA caliber player in his own right. And he looked the part against the Mavericks. Can he translate that to one of the best, if not the best teams in the Thunder? Can Desmond Bane find ways to get open since Ja will create so much attention and so many eyes will be on him? Zach Edey is going to be a massive part of this series. Because while the Thunder haven't seen Ja very much this season, 3 of the 4 games against OKC this regular season, Ja did not play. But a big part of this is that they're going to be taking on the Tomas Isolo version of the Grizzlies that has not necessarily unlocked Zach Edey, but at the very least given Zach Edey opportunity to compete. So Zach Edey's going to have a chance to play, and he has had a chance to play. And Zach Edey has clearly found some rhythm to what Isolo wants him to do as a defender and as an offensive weapon. Is he going to be able to dominate the likes of Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein? Is he going to be able to do to them what he did to the Dallas Mavericks bigs, not named Anthony Davis? I think it's fair to say that Holmgren and Hartenstein are not Anthony Davis, but they're certainly better than Derek Lively and PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. Probably closer to AD than they are the other 3. So how the Memphis front court responds to those guys, that is massively important. And something that has been an issue for the Grizzlies all season long has been three-point defense. We've talked about it often. Leaving three-point shooters open way too many times. And those guys being able to make you pay. Guess who really can make you pay? The Oklahoma City Thunder, one of the best teams at finding shooters, getting them the ball, letting them create in the entire league. SGA is the likely MVP of this league. He is tremendous. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Memphis has limited on-ball defenders. SGA should have a field day against most of the Grizzlies. Aaron Wiggins, a tremendous three-point shooter. Isaiah Joe, tremendous three-point shooter. And OKC has so many defenders that they can throw at you, from Alex Caruso to Dort. Lots of weapons that Memphis doesn't necessarily have the ability to counter. So as I said a moment ago, when the Thunder are picked to sweep the Grizzlies over the next week or so, obviously those picks will come in hot and heavy over the weekend. And we will have a Locked On Grizzlies, Locked On Thunder crossover episode for you heading into Saturday night into Sunday. That episode will be live. So we'll have a preview that's a little bit more in depth about how Memphis can make it a series. But the key is going to be being competitive and hanging around and not giving so much space for OKC to blow you away, because Memphis will not be able to get back in the mix. If the Grizzlies can blitz SGA and make somebody else beat them, the Thunder have several guys that could also beat the Grizzlies. I want to stress that. But SGA is the MVP candidate. SGA is the one that stirs the drink. Make him find the others. And again, he might be more than capable of doing that. I'm not trying to make it sound like OKC is only SGA, because they're not. They're a complete team. But make the other guys beat you. That should be a focal point as well. And that's something that you'll hear us talk about more in the next couple of days as we transition from the play-in, which the Grizzlies have thankfully survived, and now get into playoff mode. Friendly reminder, the last time that the Grizzlies were an 8th seed and played against a 1 seed that seemed like an insurmountable foe, it was the San Antonio Spurs, and the Grizzlies found a way to win, and that ushered in the grit and grind era. Could history strike twice? Could history repeat itself? We'll have to find out over the next couple of games. Thank you so much for being with me on this special episode of Locked On Grizzlies. It is appreciated. Again, we will have a Locked On crossover edition with myself and Locked On Thunder. Make sure you are tuning in for that over the weekend leading into Game 1 on Sunday afternoon. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing, wherever you get podcasts. We're proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. And remember, each and every weekday, you can get a free daily newsletter from me and others covering the NBA, fantasy basketball, and of course on my end, the Grizzlies at LockedOnDaily.com. Subscribe to the Locked On Grizzlies newsletter if you have not already done so. DeMichael will be back with us on Monday. We'll have that Locked On Thunder crossover episode that'll go live Saturday at some point into Sunday morning. A lot of content coming your way as playoff basketball returns to Memphis after a year hiatus. I'm Joe Mullinax. Thankfully, we still have some time together to talk actual basketball and not an off season. Those days will be here soon enough. But for now, it's Grizzlies playoffs, Game 1.